Hello, sports fans. It's Coach Eric Johnson, the brand.
And Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source. Excuse me.
Welcome to our podcast today. Aaron, hey, this is pretty cool. Parents out there, where do you get your resources when you have a question about your particular sport?
Now, this is something that comes up quite a bit. Most parents generally get their information from other parents. Now,
I love this.
And I guess that could be a good thing and a bad thing.
Right.
It all comes down to who that source is. And, some parents, I guess, will have good information. There's others who don't. And the thing that they say about, bad information travels fast. So,
It does, man.
Unfortunately, that's what I see more so than not. And let's just take a few minutes and kind of put some things out there on, how parents can find out the proper information, or at least helpful information on getting, the right knowledge for their kids.
Right.
I'll let you start with that. What are some organizations that maybe some parents should look into that are pretty neutral, not self-serving, but can have some good information?
Well, I found out just by, going through different sports and kind of seeing what they're affiliated with. And I think for each sport, there is a governing body. I would go to that governing body first to see what information is. Now, that information can be good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know. But I think that's a good place to start.
Right.
Soccer has a governing body.
Yes.
Football, basketball is starting to have a governing body now. Baseball doesn't really have a governing body yet. Track and field does.
Yes.
Swimming does. Those type of sports, I think if you just go and you research, United States soccer organization and, stuff like that, I think you find out that if you do that first, you'll find out what groups are affiliated with your sport, and they may have a certification program, which many of these groups do now. So coaches are certified and licensed and stuff like that. And you can see all sorts of training they may have, the mental skills they may have, or nutrition or whatsoever. So that gives you a kind of hey, they really are serious about what they're trying to do in that scope to help the athlete in that particular sport.
Right. That's a good answer. And I think that's probably the first step where you want to start from a broad spectrum, kind of just top down. Now, if we narrow that, then we're probably talking those regional and local entities, and that could be your conferences, your leagues, organizations, things like that.
Yeah,
and they might have some information for you.
Yeah, and I think what's important about that, Aaron, I think you said is the key, is that if your sport or the team that you're, that you have, that your son or daughter are playing in, find out what league they're playing in and what kind of guidelines they have and what resources do they use. Find that out first. If they don't have any, then you can find out, okay, who's a leader in this industry, in this field, locally or regionally, and ask them some questions, and then they'll give you some resources. And that's when you need to have 2, 3, 4, 5 resources in your region or your local area to kind of bounce ideas at first. I think that go there first before you start using what I call hearsay out there.
Yeah.
Hearsay is an interesting word in our industry all the time, Aaron.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I guess to bring that scope down even further, because then now you're talking about from regional to maybe teams to that local entity and to those, personal relationships that you develop with teams and coaches. Now the cynic in me
right, okay. And both of us.
And my suspicious nature is always, it's kind of like when you're looking for a trainer or you're trying to qualify a coach. There's certain things that I think should be present. You want to look at pedigree, okay? And in terms of pedigree, you want to look at what that person's or that entity's experience is.
Okay.
How long have they been doing it?
Right.
How long have they been involved, and in what facet? Because you can be involved in one facet, but not so much in another.
Right.
And so you want to gauge the level of experience. The other thing would be, in terms of their pedigree, is what's their track record.
Right.
What I'm trying to say.
Athletes. You're trying to see how many athletes
Exactly.
they get at the next level, and they've helped develop something. And has that athlete stayed with them? Has that athlete kept on talking about, hey, I use this resource to help me get to this next level, and I strongly recommend that. How many testimonials that are actually legit? Because you can put a testimonial out there on a website, and you can get anybody to do that. But if it's a resource that has a reputation and they're still doing something and they have a track record that's been positive, that's part of that trainer's pedigree. Exactly. Then that's great. That's what people should be looking for, Aaron, in this, because that's giving it a legitimacy that's not there in other trainers or other coaches or any resources they have. This is being legitimate, and parents out there, you got to find those legitimate resources to help you find answers about your young athlete.
And I want to caution parents also really differentiate between information and opinion.
I like that.
Because everyone has an opinion, but it may not be the proper information.
Right.
And we're quick to give our opinion, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's always right. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always right for your particular instance. So I really want people to be aware of that. And again, the cynic in me is look at motivation. This is a business now.
Right.
And there are business decisions made that motivate the things that people say and do. And I think you should also look at that just from a general perspective or an honest perspective. It doesn't necessarily mean anyone's trying to do anything shady, but you've also got to look at, well, hey, if I put all these pieces together, does this make sense to me? Right. Or does this look like this is just driven from an economic standpoint versus, hey, this is what's good for the kids standpoint?
Right. So basically, does that resource, that trainer, that coach, that entity that parents are looking for, are they passionate? Do they have a goal for the kid? Do they sit down with you and talk to you about their young athlete and a plan? Do they have a management system, as you and I do, Aaron, with what we try to do? Those are some things that parents need to just really understand a little bit to help them with their young athlete, because a lot of times maybe they have one or two athletes in their family and they've only done it one or twice. This is something that you and I have done for 25, 26 years. There's a pedigree, and we've seen a lot of people come through the door. And when they come through the door, it's not this cookie cutter mentality where one shoe fits every athlete.
And that's where parents should be careful, is taking that information from another parent with a grain of salt, because that experience is limited, and that's just the truth about it. And you might have a family that's had 2 or 3 successful athletes, and they're going to have a better knowledge base than someone who's only had 1 successful athlete. But they're not going to have the knowledge base of someone who's had 100 kids go through that experience. Not just the good, but also the bad. And that's what gives, coaches and trainers and people like us a little bit more of an edge, because we've seen the variations and the different iterations that can take place. So not to say that you shouldn't, be open to hearing from what other parents have to say. But again, you're going to be talking about a small sample size with their experience.
And I think that's important. I think, rounding this out, Aaron, and thinking about that is, information is powerful if it's good information. And if the information is not a good information, then it can be misleading and can guide you down the wrong path in making the decision for your young athlete.
So parents, ears open, mouths closed, be wary, be smart, keep listening.
I like that. All right, people, that wraps up our podcast today. And this is Coach EJ, the brand.
And Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source. We'll see you.